All right, I'm going to go like this. And 3, 2, 1. Welcome, everybody, to Pej's Recovery Corner. Today, we have a very special guest, my good friend Richard Blair. Welcome to the corner, Rich. How's it going?
Good to see you, Pej. Great, man. How about yourself?
Good. Thank you. Thank you very much. I actually, when I first started this podcast about 6 months ago, I was making a list of people that I thought, people of interest, of my interest, that I thought would be good for the podcast. I've heard you speak in various circles. I know you're huge in the recovery community in Los Angeles, and I thought it would be of great importance to have you come on today. So would love to hear from you. Would love to hear about you, sort of like your upbringing, I think you're a native Los Angeles individual, right? Are you like a unicorn, or is that where you're from? LA all the way?
Born and raised. I was born. I think now it's called the name of that hospital now. I think it's Hollywood Presbyterian, but I could be wrong. But it was Queen of Angels. So I was born in Queen of Angels Hospital. In 1980. And thus started my journey with my mom, and we moved all over LA, lived all over LA, and kind of just kept heading west until we hit the beach and kind of bounced back, But LA native through and through.
And you grew up, like, was there any siblings in the picture?
Later, my mom married when I was 11, and my brother was born when I was 12, almost 13. We have a great relationship now, but I was kind of off and running at that point, so I was already distancing myself from everyone. But we're cool now. I love my brother.
So when you say off and running, you mean you were experimenting, you were having fun, you were partying?
Oh yeah. Even at that age, I had already dabbled into some of the harder stuff, and I guess it's all harder stuff. I don't know why I say that. If it's an issue, it's an issue. Too much water. Too much water, you drown. It's like everything. You can overdose on everything, right?
Right.
I was definitely. I'd say it was more than experimenting. I had already. I don't know if I had crossed the line, but it was pretty close.
So I was born in 71. I know I grew up in Orange County, LA. Late 80s, early 90s, the club scene turned into kind of the rave scene. I mean, it went from like drinking at the bars to doing ecstasy and things like that, and maybe even doing some heavier stimulants and things. Were you into that scene at all by chance?
No. Oddly enough, I love to dance. I love music. I love staying up all night. At that point, I loved drinking. I loved doing drugs because that was a big part of that culture back then. And every part of it I loved from a bird's eye view, except I wasn't a fan of the music that they chose. If I could have been able to choose the music, I would have liked it more. That was the main element. I just didn't like the music. Every other part was great.
What did you like?
At that point, it was strictly hip hop. Strictly, like straight. I had heard other music, obviously, like, you're stuck in mom's car, you're going to listen to whatever mom's listening to. Some parents would let their kids listen to what they wanted to. That's not my car. Luckily, my mom was 19 when she had me, like just turned 19. So she was big on K-rock and that. So I was raised right. And, I know we both have a love of Prince and that, but, so I love good music. But at that point, 12, 13, I was straight hip hop, So if it was hip hop all night with like lots of, drugs and that feel good, I'm all about it. But it just wasn't that scene. That was not the scene.
I was very much a hip hop junkie myself. I grew up on hip hop, watching it just originate in New York and grow. So when I went to the rave scene, correct, like the music was much different, but then I started to kind of get acclimated to that stuff, or the house music. And what was cool is over a period of time when they grew that scene, then they would have like a hip hop room with like underground hip hop, old school, all that stuff. So that was really cool.
That was cool.
So what were you using first? I mean, what did it start with?
I think it started with booze. I was, I don't remember how old or my first drink. I didn't know that it would be such a big deal. Yeah, I often say like I should have had someone film it, like or like a before and after photo shoot,
Right.
before my first drink, I'm just, judging the world, just uncomfortable in my skin. And then the after photo, it's pretty much the same thing. I'm just sweaty and naked, like, it's like, yeah, I think it started with booze and then it turned into weed. Quickly thereafter was acid, and then started experimenting. And I had that mentality as a young man, as long as it was from the earth. There was this idea that if it's from the earth, it's okay. And, looking back now, it's hilarious because everything's from earth. Like there's no drugs or anything shipped in from Pluto. You know what I mean?
I say this all the time. You got to love the kids that we see these days that are trying to teach us that it's natural. It comes from a plant. But I think everything comes from a plant. I think the coca leaf creates cocaine, right?
Yeah,
well, what about meth? That's built in a lab. I'm like, yeah, but at some point or another, it came from the ground. So either way,
that's it. Yeah,
you gotta love
that's
the justification. Funny. So when did it become a problem? The partying, the using, the drinking. Was it manageable for a while?
Oh yeah. I think I was young enough to where I don't think I did a good job at hiding it. I actually took a lot of pride in, the culture and having people know that that's who I identified myself as. And so, I don't think I hid it, but I don't think it was bad. I managed to get by at school. I managed to make friends. I was good at sports. I was popular. I had a great childhood in a lot of ways. I didn't know beneath the surface that I was distanced from the world and I was not okay with who I was as a person. But as far as alcohol and drugs were concerned, I felt like it was great. It gave me everything I was ever looking for. Self-esteem or confidence, or seemingly connections to other people, something to do. My mom asked me one time, she said, this was once I was sober a bit because it was always tough on her, but she asked me, what if you could choose any drug, only pick one, no harm, no consequence, no nothing, no physical, no lose your life, no anything, what would you choose? And that was tough. And I thought, you know what? For strictly feeling based, ecstasy.
Thank you. You read my mind. I was thinking the same thing.
But and I told her this, I said, but my only issue with ecstasy was it was just a pill and all you did was swallow it. There was no doing, there were no tools, there was no digging or breaking up. There was no sprinkling. There was no hitting the pipe and the chore boy and the stuff. There was none of that. And that's why I ended up doing sometimes 10 pills, in a sitting, just because I just needed something to do. So, but it didn't become a problem, I'd say probably until tail end of high school was when it first started to see I was giving up on everything around me, probably a real problem before that if we dissect it, but where it started presenting as a problem was probably tail end of high school, junior, senior year.
Okay. All right.
And I was still succeeding. I graduated with honors. I had all kinds of cool stuff, accolades, promises, all these fun things, but I had given up internally. That's when I noticed, if I look back, hindsight.
So it didn't really affect your grades, but you were just kind of falling apart on the inside.
Yeah, I had done so well my prior 2-3 years within my high school experience that I had enough, I guess, credits to graduate. So I just had to go to 2 or 3 classes, I think, my senior year, just because they were only for senior year. The rest of them, I think I TA'd one class, teacher assistant, and then I was out. And so I got to do whatever I wanted to. And I was able to coast. I mean, they gave me a medal when I graduated at Santa Monica High School because I had done so well. I was part of 100 kids that got some sort of medal. I don't even know why I got the medal. You know what I mean? I don't feel like I earned it, but whatever. But yeah, I still knew deep down that I was distanced from the world. I was not connected.
So when you got out of school, what did you do next? Did you go to college? What did you do?
Yes, I went to Santa Monica City College for
SMC.
one day. That's right, Pico Tech. Yeah, Pico Tech. I went there for one day. I never went back. So, I mean, I can't really say I went to college. I crashed one class, I got it, but then I never went back. So, and it was like a Monday, Wednesday class at 1 p.m. and I slept through it the second day. So I said, I'm over it. I never went back. It just wasn't for me.
We have very similar stories. Interesting. Okay, so then what? Were you moved out of mom's house at the time?
No, no. I was definitely stuck to the umbilical cord. I couldn't function on my own. Actually, well into sobriety, even I would say. I kind of forced, at that point once I got sober. But prior to that, I was trapped. My mother and my stepfather were selling their house in Santa Monica, and I was still living there. So the real estate agent would show up from time to time to show it, and I would have to hide or something. And meanwhile, I'm cooking crack out of it and having people over, bellowing smoke out the windows, in 16th Street in Santa Monica. And, yeah, it's just wild to look back on that. And then finally it sold, escrow went through. I didn't know where to go. My mom paid first and last on an apartment in Van Nuys, and the rest was up to me. And I got a job. I got a job at Ben and Jerry's. I was slinging ice cream. I got hired as the assistant manager, and I was quickly promoted to manager. I forget what chintzy amount I was making, but I was stealing everything out of the safe. I wasn't ringing things up. I was just a shady guy. What else?
Isn't
I
it a
got
trip
addicted.
to look at the life that we have right now and to think like, who the fuck was that?
Yeah, it's wild. I don't, it's not even just that I don't recognize who I am. I am shocked at the life I live today. The fact that I wake up to an alarm and I appreciate it. Not only do I do it, I love it. I love structure. I love schedule and routine. I love connection to my wife and my daughter. I love my friends and family, and to see how that means so much to me. Whereas before, the only thing that mattered was my needs, my wants. Get high, get money, get laid. Yeah, no, I mean, I was very just caveman, very basic, small world, very sad.
Do you think some of the music that we grew up on, as much as we love hip hop, I know I still love hip hop, I love it. But do you think that kind of defined our lives, or we were trying to find our identity through some of the stuff that was glorified in some of the music that we were listening to?
I don't know. You hear that argument from time to time. I think everyone's different. I think it's not the music. I think it's the individual. I think there are certain individuals that are fanatical, about a certain artist or a certain genre or a certain message. And you could have 100 people listen to that same song, and maybe 2 of them are going to take it one way as opposed to 98 of them that are going to hear it another way. So do I think that
Right.
music defined me? By no means. There was never a time where I thought I was actually, I did think I was pretty tough. I did know deep down that I was not a gangster. But I did think I was pretty cool. I was pretty tough. I rocked cross colors and a Malcolm X hat, man. I was no joke, man, in my mind. But in real life, I was a big joke. Yeah.
So yes, it became a problem towards the end of high school, the using and drinking, but when did you actually, how was your 20s? How'd that look? Did you get sober in your 20s? You're 20 years sober now, right?
Yeah, I just celebrated 20 in June, and I got sober June 21st, 2001. So I had just turned 21 in January. So 6 months later, I got sober. The beginning of the 20s was brutal. I got evicted from that apartment that my mother paid first and last on. I couldn't pay the bills. I got fired from that job because I was robbing the safe, obviously. It was bad. I didn't know what to do. I had ended up in a place that I always thought I could get out of. I felt like that kind of Bugs Bunny, Ferris Bueller kind of nothing can ever, get me. And I had got. So it was time to straighten up. And I ended up reaching out to some friends. I luckily had some, not friends, but just people that, yeah, they were friends. We didn't talk much, but here I was in a position where I needed some help, and they knew where to direct me.
And where did they direct you? Was it
I
rehab?
did. No, actually, I never went to rehab. I never went to rehab. I didn't know it was an option. I think at that point I was so cash poor, and I come from nothing, and so it was. It just felt like this. It wasn't real. I don't know how to put it. I just felt like rehab was this thing that cost millions of dollars, and I just was not from that place where you had to have good insurance. None of this I really knew. I just knew I did not have what it took to go to rehab. So I just skipped it and just figured I would. I don't know, not get it. I also didn't want to be sober. In reality, I wanted to manage it. I wanted to be able to get high and be successful. That's all. It felt like just if I could just get my life in order, get the career and the cash thing and the relationships and self, I guess, but then get high. Like people do
What was
it.
it?
I
What
can't.
was it that you were getting high on at this time? Was it stimulants,
Uh,
suppressants?
yeah,
What?
yeah. I was an up guy. I was crack, meth. I I didn't turn anything away, but I had my preferences. There's a lot of booze. I would go to 7-Eleven. I was kind of classy, so I would buy like the $7 bottles of wine from 7-Eleven, and I'd get like 4 to 6 of those a night, typically in that range. And I would just walk back to my little apartment. I would smoke crack and drink red wine from plastic cups, not solo cups, but my own like my plastic cups that I owned, and I would drink so much wine and not water, and smoke so much crack that I had these my mucus would mix with the wine. I had these dark kind of purplish maroon wine. I call them wine slugs that would build around my mouth, and then I would eat them because there was wine in there. I tell people that, they're like, "Dude, what is wrong with you?" And I was just this gross,
Oh my god!
just I was dirty, bro, just dirty, and I was always naked
Wine
and
and
sweaty,
crack
and
of all, like, what a mixture! Wine and crack. A
I was
little bit,
bougie,
a
man.
little bit of class in there.
I had standards, man. I was upper echelon,
It's funny
in
that
my own mind.
yeah, it's funny that we can laugh at this and also just I relate so much. I understand. I get it.
Yeah. Oh, it's wild, right? I mean, sometimes I look back and it's just bizarre to me that as dark as it was at that time, as like seriously the pit of grossness that it was at that time. Even now, 20 years sober, amazing family, health, life, career, I still look back with like a certain amount of fondness, a certain amount of romanticism. I look back and it's like, oh man, there was something beautiful about it. As gross as it was,
Right.
I was at the core of it. I was at the very bottom of the depths of the negative side, the dark side of me.
Mm-hmm.
Something
Mm-hmm.
beautiful about that in its own right. I would never want to go back, but, make no bones about it. But I can acknowledge that it's beautiful in its own right.
Yeah, I think it's interesting that you say that because there was we were talking about wanting to just do drugs and be successful. So I think uh, I relate to you a lot. We were at least the way I was raised. I was raised to be ambitious. I came from a family that was driven and wanted to succeed, and definitely with that came education. But because I was screwing that up, like because I too, I didn't do good in high school, but when it came to college time, I was like, I'm not doing this. Like I know other ways to make money, and that's what I kind of did. But I remember like the type of stimulants I did, it would kind of fuel my ego and make me think that I'm bulletproof, like I'm invincible. I can just go and go and go. Like, but when you're like when your soul is just it's just dying, like it's totally just melting, and like this isn't the way it was supposed to be. This isn't good. But how do I get out of this? When you're kind of just in that whirlpool of just grossness, like living in the underbelly of the beast at its finest, right? So,
Yeah.
um, So then you had some friends that helped you out. What did you do? Did you require detox or anything like that?
No, I ended up meeting up with some people, and then someone was nice enough to let me stay on there. They said they had a spare room. They did not have a spare room. That was a blatant lie. They had a cot in a not even large hallway. I mean, it was just a hallway. And this cot was covered with this, like, I don't know if you guys remember that light blue blanket with the satin rim, but it always would pill up. Like everyone had that blanket. It was like that light blue pilled up, gross blanket, and
Yes.
it was covered in cat hair. And I remember it was just covered in cat hair, and I'm allergic to cats. And I would sleep on this guy's cot. He was a tennis instructor. You know, he left at 6 a.m. so that he was like, you got to leave at 6 a.m. He'd give me a bowl of cereal or like I don't know, something. And I would hit the streets and just walk around and try and find a job. It was rough, man. It was rough. But then I would come home when he was done with his clients, and he let me stay there for 2 weeks. And that was 2 weeks where I had somewhere to go and sleep, and no one else was offering. And after that, I stayed with another gentleman who was an actor. I had seen him on some shows, and he actually did have a spare room. And I thought he wanted something. I thought there was some sort of play on that, like he was trying to get at me. He was not, and he was just trying to help. And I remember the first day I woke up at his place 2 weeks after the first guy, he wasn't even there. There was a note on the kitchen counter that said, help yourself to cereal or Pop-Tarts or whatever. I'm going to go walk the dogs at the dog park. I'll come back. We'll go meet up and go hang. And
these guys were, both of these guys were sober guys, right?
Yeah. Yeah. And it was just mind blowing that they would help me with nothing, no gain. There was no, personal motive on their side besides just sticking their hand out and helping the next guy. And that was,
I love that. I love it.
Yeah.
And your mom wasn't talking to you at this time?
No. She had nothing to say. And plus I didn't have a phone. Like I had a disconnected pager, I just, it's like I had no money to hit the pay button. Cell phones existed. I'm not like trying to make it sound like I'm, back in time or something.
They were breaks. You know that. They were like the break phones.
Yeah. And I did not own one. And so, but no one was talking to me. I had kind of blew it. And so, I strung together some time and then kind of rebuilt those bridges with family and friends, some family. And then things started to take off, sobriety started to take effect.
How long?
I had no idea.
How long into your sobriety did it take for you to actually make an absolute decision that this is going to be the way of life that you're choosing to be in? As in, like, no turning back, no using or drinking. Like, was it immediate? Was it over a period of time? Like, how long do you remember it being?
Well, I tried getting sober for a few years. And when I say a few years, it wasn't constant for a few years. It started at a certain point. I would try every so often. And when I say try, it was loose. I like to think that I'm smarter than the average bear, that I can be successful where others are not. And so I just kept failing. And much like anything in life, if you're going to be good at school, it's not just about attending classes. It's about actively listening, participating, reading the books, doing the homework. That's how you get good grades. That's how you learn something, not even just about good grades. That's how you learn something. And the same thing in religion. You can go to, whatever religious body you're into. Let's say it's church. You can go to church all you want. That's where people get together. But at the end of the day, if you're not practicing whatever's, in the literature, and applying it to your life and practicing that, going to church is just a social gathering, And so the same thing with me, in my recovery, I thought that because I was hanging out with sober people that I was living this thing and that I would do what they did, and then I would get my money right, I would get the relationships right, and then I would be sober. I put the cart before the horse, right? And so I kept trying, and this time, like when you ask when did it really click, it clicked quickly this time, 20 years ago, but it was rapid, but it didn't dawn on me until probably about think the first time was at 6 months. And I remember I had just kept my head down and was just staying sober, living sober. And all of a sudden I realized that 6 months was in like a few days. And I was just astounded. Like 6 months, like that's wild, you know, and that's a real amount of time. And so I started to get proud, and I realized that not only was I coming up on 6 months, I hadn't thought about drinking or doing drugs for probably like 4 of those months, maybe 3 of those months.
Amazing.
And it, you know, thoughts would creep up, but like it had been a minute, and I went, "Oh wow, it's working. Like I'm in this. I'm not just on the sidelines. I'm playing the game, man. I'm in the game." It felt good. It felt real good.
I love it. So, and obviously you've been here to stay ever since. You put together 20 years. You're how old right now?
41. So got it when I was 21.
21 years old. So there's the hope for the youngsters that come in and are contemplating. I mean, and I want to talk about your career now, but before that, there's a miracle that I think happened for you along the way in your sobriety. If I'm not mistaken, you got reunited with somebody that wasn't in your life growing up. You want to talk? Is it your father?
Yeah, it's pretty wild. I grew up, as I mentioned, a single mom, product of a single parent household, and my mom and I were very close, and that I never knew my father. And she spoke, lovingly of him. They were high school sweethearts, that kind of a thing. And I never met him. I spoke to him, I think, once or twice when I was around 14. He was just trying to like buy me a basketball with like Michael Jordan's signature, and I'm like, yeah, that's cool, but like I don't even know what you look like, bro. Like, but I didn't know I was 14. I'm in the beginning, the budding element of my disease, and so I wasn't able to say like, hey, I want to get a meaningful relationship with you, not stuff. And but I never met him, and then he passed away probably about 8 years ago from alcoholism and drug addiction. Mm-hmm. Somewhere along the way, I think like a few years after that, maybe it's probably like 5-6 years ago, I did one of those DNA things, and to see like how Irish I am and that, like what's my background, because my mom is super pale and Irish, and I always knew that my biological father, the guy who passed away, was Native American, and I think that's where I'm able to get a tan, you know what I'm saying? And my mom was always jealous, right? Because she burns, she's either white or red and then back to white. There's no tan, And it's weird because here I am, this blue-eyed Irish guy, and that I can get a tan. So I take the DNA test. I'm 60-something% Irish and 20-something% Native American. And, I see Native American, my head just goes Cherokee because I'm basic white guy. Like I don't know, and who knew? All of a sudden it starts unfolding. I get an email one day, 2 years later, after taking this test, out of nowhere, and it says DNA match. Parent/child. And, I talk pretty openly about this. Prior to my wife, I was kind of a man of convenience, like I was a low-hanging fruit kind of a guy, for lack of better words. And I didn't really go after girls I was into, anyway. So I just assumed that my daughter probably had an older brother or sister. And it said Roy A., August something 1962, and I'm like, not my kid, but I screenshot it and I texted it over to mom like ? She wrote back in caps lock, fuck, call me. And I called her. She picked up real quick and she told me the story. She was dating her high school sweetheart, Bob, the guy on my birth certificate, the guy that passed away, and Native American, alcoholism, like it all fit. And she was dating him, epic breakup 2 months before prom. She starts dating a coworker from McDonald's, this guy, Roy. They dated for a couple months, hooked up a couple times, and then she got back together with Bob. So it was like a lot of Bob, a little bit of Roy, a lot of Bob. And so when she got pregnant, she's like, oh, Bob, it's Bob. And it was not Bob, it was Roy. And so I was with some friends when I found this information out. I had just gotten back from Ireland. I was in Big Bear with a couple of our friends and their kids. And, everyone's in the know at this point. I mean, this is happening real time as I woke up that morning in Big Bear. And my friends are now online searching for this guy, Roy. And my boy Isaac finds him, and he finds him on LinkedIn. And I don't know why, but like because he found him on LinkedIn, it was such a good feeling. I was like, oh dang, dad's got a job. This is great. You know, like he's employed. You know. Yeah, it's like one thing to have a Twitter or a Facebook. It's another thing to have a LinkedIn. You know what I'm saying? And I was cracking up, and you know, he finds him on Facebook, and I'm scrolling through this guy's Facebook, and every year he's got 2 birthdays. And I'm thinking, wait a minute. Like there's only one type of person on the planet I know that's got 2 birthdays. It's us. That's it. There. You know what I mean? And I went, man, and this guy's sober too, you know? And, you know, we got in contact, actually, oh man, check this out. I think it's 2 years tomorrow. I'll tell you right now. It's one of them. It's coming up. The 29th. The 29th. So 2 days from today will be 2 years, which is just wow. Oh, no, sorry. 3 years. And it's been magical. We have such a great relationship. We talked yesterday. We talk frequently. He's met my family, and we have an amazing connection just from being sober together. And obviously, you know, DNA in that. But yeah, it's pretty wild, man.
That's a miracle. It's fascinating. I mean, I just, that touches my heart so much. I love that. So thank you for sharing that with us. Let's talk about what you do now. Because you own a place, it's Catalyst Recovery. And how did it start? Why did it start? And what is it? What exactly is it? You want to talk about it some?
Yeah. So, I just celebrated 20 years in recovery myself. Once I got sober, thank you kindly. Once I got sober, I caught fire to this, like many people do. And I wanted to help others get what I had got. And so I jumped into working in treatment. Was a tech. I worked at a bunch of different places. I had different positions throughout my tenure. And then I started doing this sober companioning thing. And I was a sober companion for 10 years, and I worked in treatment, you know, for the last 19 years. And, you know, I noticed a few things. I learned a lot from a lot of like great clinicians. You know, the education from that was amazing. Not that I would ever say that I have a clinician's background, but I learned a lot by just listening to them and watching them, how they operate. I learned probably equally as much from bad ownership or bad management. And so, and some good as well. I don't want to make it seem like there's bad clinicians and there's amazing owners. So it goes both ways. There's always exceptions. But I learned, I just observed and listened and took it all in. What was blatantly apparent was that residential treatment was effective to a point. And while someone is in rehab, they typically do pretty well. It's upon departure when they go home that they start to fall apart. So here I am, a sober companion. I'm doing this stuff. I'm realizing that I've never been trained by anyone I've ever worked with. They've had some some of them might have had like some meetings, you know, where we do training. There's no training. It's just a bunch of stories and, you know, get out there, kiddo, you know, you're going to be great. Make sure to put in your notes every day. And, you know, no background check, no nothing. They didn't even test me if I was high myself. They had no idea. They just know me from the rooms. You got some time sober, kid, and you seem to have a way with people. You're going to be great. And meanwhile, it's up to me to figure all this stuff out when I'm working with someone. And I turned out that I was good at what I did, but I started taking notes as to what I did and why I was effective in my role. And I developed a training program because I wanted to be able to train other people to do what I did as effectively as I did, to be aware of how we communicated with others and the words that we chose, to know what to pack when you're going somewhere, to look ahead and make sure you're prepared. As far as if you're going to different airports, you better know the lay of the land. Where's the rental car spot? If you're traveling with someone that's a little suspect, you better know how to handle yourself. And,
that's right.
You know, all of those different elements. And I put together this training package that I felt really helped people learn how to do this. And from there, I decided that I was going to strike out on my own, that I was going to create Catalyst Recovery, and we were going to do it different. And so quickly, I realized that in order to do it different, typically most sober companion companies are strictly experiential. They pair you with someone that has their own recovery experience, and then there might be some loose oversight, rarely any training, if any, and then it's just, hey, go and do that thing and be sober. What I wanted to do was add the clinical component, which adds professionals with the sober companions who are the paraprofessionals. And that marriage of the two, I noticed that's what works for treatment, like residential treatment. That's really effective. You've got your therapist, you've got your psychs, you've got your psychologist, you've got that treatment team, that clinical component, but you've also got techs, you got the chef, you got all those people that are like, no letters behind their name, but they got the experience. And that marriage was what worked well. And so I started bringing in clinicians to Catalyst. And then I thought, you know what, I want to get some sort of credibility. I wanted to add some legitimacy to what we did. And so we sought out Joint Commission accreditation. For those that don't know, Joint Commission is the gold standard of the survey process, the auditing, to make sure that you are the best of the best in providing stellar patient care and patient safety. Mm-hmm. And so it had never been done before. We're not a facility. So just to sort of let everyone know, Catalyst Recovery is not a rehab, like in the sense that we have a place that you come to. We're in Malibu. There is none of that. We're not in Malibu. We're anywhere that you are. The whole idea that I came up with was we need to be sober where it matters most, which is in home. Now you tell people, I don't know about you, but I tell people, hey, we're going to set up a treatment plan in your house. And they're like, wait. Someone's going to live with me 24/7? That's crazy. And I go, right. Okay, touche. It's weird. For sure. You're going to have this stranger living in your house. Yeah, that's wild. But think about rehab. You're going into this house that's completely foreign to you with a bunch of other people you don't know, staff and, census, and it's going to work. And then you're supposed to learn it so well that you're going to translate it back to your house. And we all know the success rates or lack thereof, and yet rehab makes so much sense to people because it's what we know. And somehow having someone in your house is just ludicrous. And I thought, you know what, we're going to make this something that makes a lot of sense. And so started that in 2014. Catalyst Recovery is the first and only Joint Commission accredited in-home substance use treatment. And we work all over the world. We work with all different types of people, working very, very diligently to become reimbursable by insurance. Have a lot of fun stuff in the works.
I didn't know that you guys work all over the world. I thought it was in LA, but that's really cool.
Oh yeah, we're everywhere. Yeah, we've done work all over, and it's really cool.
So let's say you have a client that is pursuing that in-home treatment, and they need a detox within the house. Does that mean a doctor comes out, or do they see a doctor and then they're on detox medication? Is there a clinician within the house that's overseeing their detox, or is it just one person that's like a companion?
Oh, no. So there's a doctor, there's a 24-hour nurse filling those orders depending on what that person's presenting, quick to assess and determine whether or not that person needs an actual hospital detox or a facility detox. Detox is the most crucial element of treatment. Things can go sideways pretty quickly, and so we want to make sure that the person is the right fit for in-home detox. But yeah, they have full-time nurse, companion as well, and then the doctor who is doing the initial assessment and then follow-up.
Gotcha. So sometimes there's detox, sometimes they get detoxed somewhere else in like a medical facility or something like that, but then they come home, and then that's where Catalyst and the treatment team works around whatever treatment plan that they create for the individual within their home, right?
Yeah, actually, typically we'll meet them. Let's say that if it's in-home detox, we're obviously there with them. Let's say they go to a detox or they go to a treatment center and do 30, 60, 90 days there. We'll actually meet them at the detox or meet them at the treatment center and go home with them. So there's accidents. I was always told accidents happen at the intersections, right?
Right.
On straightaways, we do pretty well on straightaways. Intersections is where there's cross traffic, and that's where most people crash. The intersection in treatment is when you're leaving detox and going to residential. When you're leaving residential and you're going to IOP, whatever, sober living, whatever. Those intersections of, transfer of care, that is where most people fall off. That one little flight home, all of a sudden the bar, all of a sudden, you've got your flight attendant asking you if you'd like a cocktail. And you know what? Yes, I would. And the next thing you know, your 30, 60, 90 days is just gone.
Right out the
Here we
window.
go again. That's right. So,
Awesome.
Yeah.
Well, I believe in your service. I believe in you. I'm a fan. We've been
Goes
admiring
both
each
ways,
other for
brother.
a few years now. I love what you've done with yourself. It's amazing to hear. So, all of this, you created all this with no college training? Like you didn't go to school for this, or you did go to school in recovery?
No, I did not. I actually don't have any letters. No. I believe
based off of experience of working in the field, you learn the do's and the don'ts and the ins and outs of what works and what you wanted to create. I love it. I think it's
yes and no. To speak to that point, I just feel like, because so many of us, we stand behind experience. Experience is key. Experience, my experience is just that. That's only my experience, and I can't translate that to anyone else except me.
right.
What I do give myself credit for is knowing what I don't know and making sure that I find the people that do know those things, so that we can then work as a team, a multidisciplinary team, because I know for a fact I only know so much. Let me pull in the right people so that we can all come together, bring together our collective expertise, and at that point surround an individual, because I'm not going to guide your course. Oh, how do I know? And then each person is different. You surround this one person, that one person's different every time. You get the same person on paper, 57, alcohol use disorder, affluent background, whatever it is, and then come to find out family history, ACEs, medical history, all treatment history, all that stuff starts to break apart, and you realize you're dealing with two completely different individuals presenting issues and all that. Who knows what's going on? And all we see, and typically in our world, and maybe you've seen this as well, people say, oh, it's alcohol and male, and they've got this insurance. Oh, we send them here. And it's like, wait, what? Like, who knows if they're dealing with the underlying issues? He's got a personality disorder. That place isn't going to help. He's got to go over here, So, yeah, I don't want to speak to, as if I figured something out that I know it all. I'm definitely not a brainiac. Let's just dispel that quickly. I know enough to know that I don't know, and I'm going to find the right people that do. Yeah.
I respect that very much. Thank you for saying that. I have two last questions, and then we'll close it out. But one is, how many staff members are in Catalyst? I mean, is it a lot of people? Does it vary?
Internal staff, there's 4 of us. As far as clinical, you're looking closer to like 10 to 12. And then as far as agents, we call them not sober companions, we call them recovery agents. The reason, I just need to speak to this really quick. The reason we say agents is not because we're some bougie Hollywood service, but because the name of the company is Catalyst Recovery. Catalyst. A catalyst is an agent of change, right? Something that speeds or alters, significant change. And that's what our agents do. And so agents, we've trained over 100 agents. We have a roster that is very full and dense of people that have great training, great, background checks, all that other fun stuff. We have the best of the best.
I love that. That brings me to the final question I was going to ask you is, you do trainings. I mean, how can somebody get involved? Is it still available? Are you guys all full on your roster, or are you always open to training new agents?
This is a great question. So we are always open because we have such a vast demand, a demographic that we serve. We could have an elderly, female in, Wyoming. We might have a young non-binary individual locally. We might have, who knows? And it's global and all the different moving pieces. And like I said before, all the different presenting issues. So we are always in need of more people, always. Now, with that, the tough part is just because of that, we need access to as many as possible. We don't always have, participants for everyone, so that means that we're not working with 300 people a day, and we just have everyone busy and we're all over the world doing big things. We're more of a boutique, smaller place. We work, we keep a certain standard and therefore we don't work with many people. But we're very selective about who we choose to work with, actually, that want our services. But we do offer trainings. They are paid trainings. We go through the fine-tooth comb. It's actually co-facilitated by a clinician friend of mine. He speaks to the clinical components of building rapport, talking about identifying red flags, communicating within a multidisciplinary team, and not from my element, because I only speak to being a sober companion. He speaks to being a clinician and how important it is for the science behind it, how you can develop trust with an individual so that you can better serve them, so that you can identify what those red flags are, so that you're not even just theirs, your own. If your needs are being met by a client, if you're doing too much talking, most likely you're not doing it right, So we go over a lot of elements that no one else does, and I think it offers a lot of insight for individuals that want to do this work.
Love it. And so they can reach you on your website, or how would they be able to get a hold of whoever does the training or would be doing the training?
Yeah, you can go to our website. I don't remember if there's a page, but there is. You can email careers@catalystrecovery.com and send your resume and a cover letter, a CV, whatever it is that you're into. And, we review those, and we have trainings. Typically, they used to be quarterly. And as of, late with a global pandemic, we are a little more sporadic with those trainings, but we're looking to get those started up again soon.
Awesome. Well, it's so good to see you here today. It's good to see your face, and I hope to link up with you again very soon. Karen, I love and adore you. You're a good man. You do good work. I believe in your work ethic and just you as a human being. You help a lot of people, and that's recovery to me. That's what it's all about. That's what we do here, right? So
I appreciate that, Pej. Both ways, man.
Man, thanks. Is there anything you want to say before we sign off? I know you're a busy man.
I just no. I appreciate the time. Just getting to see you means the world to me. The fact that you have this recovery podcast is pretty awesome. Catalyst is starting our own podcast where we're going to be interviewing different people as well. And we haven't put out the exact start date on that, but yeah, be on the lookout follow us, on Instagram and the rest of it, and you'll hear all the fun stuff. Also, we're going live every Wednesday at noon. I'll be going live. Catalyst will be going live with Jason Waller from the Hills. And we're talking all things recovery and answering questions in real time. So please feel free to follow Catalyst Recovery on Instagram, and make sure to hop on our live event tomorrow at noon and every Wednesday.
For sure. Most definitely. I will. Thank you. Thanks for saying that. Have a good rest of your day, and we are signing off. Bye.
Thanks, Pej.
Thank you.